This is Horse Sands Fort in the middle of the Solent, built with others to defend the area from the French. But go back 100 years, there was no fort here, but there was a maritime disaster. The Invincible ran aground and was lost. But the ship's wreck is still giving out secrets and showing us today what a very special vessel she was. Invincible started life as a French ship, but British Admiral George Anson captured her at the First Battle of Cape Finisterre, and that action changed everything for British firepower at sea. I've come to the National Museum of the Royal Navy in Portsmouth to find out why.
Straight after the capture, they take her back to Portsmouth, refit her slightly, but mostly they go on and study everything about her so they can use the design elsewhere.
In effect, the British copied the design of Invincible because the ship was far better than anything they had.
She could use all of the guns on all three decks, whereas the British heavier ships couldn't use the bottom decks in heavy seas. So it really elevated the capabilities of British ships.
All of these objects came from Invincible. The wreck was rediscovered in 1979, and since then an amazing collection of thousands of items has been brought to the surface. Jenna Taylor is Senior Conservator of Objects. Her job is to look after the museum's collection and prepare new items for display or storage.
They were under the sea for a good 200 years and they're just so well preserved, as you can see. There's a real insight into the lives on the ship. So for example, this shoe, it's just such a close connection with someone. You can imagine wearing that shoe all those years ago. And you can tell things, for example, how that person might have walked, if they had any certain conditions, all depending on how the shoe had kind of been worn down when it was in use.
When the artefacts are recovered, they're waterlogged and have been that way for over 200 years. A wax called polyethylene glycol is slowly added to the water. This stabilises the cells in the objects, stopping them collapsing in on themselves, preserving their history.
We have a brush here. As you can see, it's in such good condition. There's the broad arrow on the right-hand side, which is the sign of that it belonged to the Navy. You have the hole where the handle would have fitted into, and then the bristles would have been on the underside of the brush. And again, it's that insight of somebody was using that in the 1700s, and we have it right here in front of us. It's such a good connection with the past. I'm particularly fascinated by the items that have been recovered that have no modern day comparison. This is one of them, and I'm going to be terribly careful as I pick it up. It is called a pigment barrel. In it, you would keep dried pigment that could be turned into ink, and you'd have another one with sand in it. So you need to write something, you come to your pigment barrel, take out some of it, mix it with water, you've got your ink, you write what you need to write, and then you sprinkle sand over it from your other barrel, which acts as a blotter. And as I say, I can't think of anything in the modern world that is its direct comparator. It's so interesting working on these objects because you do feel like you have a connection with the people that would have worn the shoe, would have used the brush. They're so just there in front of you as they would have been at the time. The many thousands of items raised from Invincible have now been gifted by the Royal Navy to the National Museum of the Royal Navy to join their vast collection. And the story of this ship hasn't been lost to history. In fact, come straight out of the dockyard, one of the first pubs you see is named after the man who stole it from the French in the first place, Admiral Anson. Tim Cooper, Forces News, Portsmouth Naval Base. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe.